Triple digits here in North Texas, 100 degrees outside. It's not only hot here, it's hot in Washington. I'm Westside Jeff, sitting in for Chris Krok. Chris is off the rest of the week. I'll be sitting in for Chris. Thanks for tuning in. My story is pretty simple. Born and raised in Columbus, Ohio. Midwestern kid. Grew up loving talk radio, listening talk radio. As I watch and listen to the news, I just have common sense opinion, and that's all I do. I'm going to give you common sense opinion on current events. On news, I'm going to tell you what the analysis of that is, and I'm going to give you my opinion. So settle in, let's go. Westside Jeff, News Talk 820 WBAP. The top story today, by the way, bottom of the hour, I want to talk about a guy that's getting canceled. Culture wars were invigorated today. Culture wars are front and center. If you haven't heard it, you're going to hear about it from me. Bottom of the hour, a big star is going to be canceled, or at least trying to be canceled. We'll talk to that bottom of the hour. But the lead story today is what happened, not only hot weather here in North Texas, but hot in D.C. because Hunter Biden tax probe has been hampered by the Justice Department, according to IRS employees. They were in front of the House Investigation Committee, and a lot of things came out of that. I reached out earlier to a good friend of mine, a good friend of the show. His name is Mark Weaver. Now, Mark's going to join us and talk about that in 30 seconds. Mark is a former spokesman for the U.S. Department of Justice, so he worked in the Justice Department in D.C. and the Ronald Reagan administration. This guy knows the DOJ. He's an attorney by nature. He teaches law at various schools across the country. He was in North Carolina last week teaching at North Carolina Chapel Hill, University of North Carolina Chapel Hill. He's an author of a great book called A Wordsmith's Work. He's also a political consultant. Mark is joining me right now. Mark, thanks for taking the time to join me. What did you hear today, Mark?
Well, I heard career IRS employees continuing to say what we've heard now for weeks, that Joe Biden's administration blocked the IRS from investigating the president's son. And that should concern all of us who care about the rule of law and enforcing the law fairly.
Mark, what did we learn new today? Because this has been a conversation that's taken place a little bit in Washington. And up till now, we've heard all along about whistleblower X, kind of unnamed. And Democrats have said all along, well, put your name on it. Well, they've kind of been grandstanding it. They put their name on it today. What did we learn new today, Mark, with regard to the Hunter Biden IRS investigation?
Well, Agent X came forward and gave us his name, Joseph Ziegler, 13-year career veteran of the IRS. He says he's a Democrat. He's gay. He's married to another man. It didn't sound like some conservative who's trying to hurt Joe Biden. He's just an IRS professional who wants to tell the truth. And remember, both he and the other IRS agent who come forward previously, both of them went under oath in front of the Congress today, which means if they're telling lies, they are subjecting themselves to penalties of perjury, which means going to prison. There just aren't that many people who are willing to publicly take an oath like that and then go and lie. And what he tells us is, as he was looking into Hunter Biden's tax situation, that at every turn, the Biden Justice Department tried to block the investigation from gathering the evidence it needed and from moving forward to prosecute Hunter Biden for numerous misdemeanors and felonies.
Mark Weaver joining us. He's a professor of law. He worked in the Department of Justice under Ronald Reagan, so he understands DOJ. He worked in the DOJ. He had top secret clearance at the DOJ years ago, and he is uniquely qualified to talk about the story of the day today, which is the IRS agents who were questioned in Capitol Hill over Hunter Biden's tax records. Mark, what I found interesting today is when Ziegler did his opening speech, one of the things he said is, I come freely, I forget exact words, but he basically said, I've been pressured from my employers, retribution from my employers. They didn't want me to speak. And by the way, I'm not being funded by anybody. I had to pay my own airfare here. I have to hire my own attorney. So there's nobody behind him. And to me, when I hear that, I don't care whether you're Republican or Democrat, when I hear that, immediate credibility that the guy under oath says he's got no agenda behind him.
Yeah, God bless him. He said he wanted to do the right thing by coming forward. And you have to worry if you're in his situation.
Oh, God, yes.
He works for the President of the United States. He's a federal employee. The folks who work, the career employees in these agencies, the ones who I worked with when I was at the Justice Department, tend to be Democrats, tend to be very liberal. So I don't imagine they're going to be throwing any parties for him back at the IRS. But when the President of the United States is using the power that voters gave him to cover for his son, who appears to have committed numerous crimes and will be pleading guilty to a couple of them next week. You got to give kudos to a career employee who's willing to come forward and do the right thing. All of us are very quick to criticize government employees. None of us loves the IRS, but kudos to IRS agents Gary Shapley and Joseph Ziegler for coming forward, going under oath, and giving all of us insight into what happened as the Biden administration covered for Hunter Biden.
Mark, can you imagine what they're going to go through? I mean, these are people working in a career path like you and I are. They have day jobs, but they paid out of their own pocket for attorneys and flew to Washington to sit in front of this congressional committee on national television. These guys are marked men. Every time they walk into a coffee store or a fast food restaurant, the grocery store, take their kids shopping for back to school, they will be recognized and they will be villainized and they will be saluted. These guys both have a target on their back. It's amazing that they put themselves in that position. I don't know that I could, Mark.
It does require a certain amount of courage. In my work as an attorney and a crisis communications expert, I often counsel people who are in this situation, and I tell them, listen, change all your passwords. Take down your social media accounts. Tell your family members to do the same, and take some precautions around your house, maybe an alarm system, maybe train with a weapon and carry it if you can legally. Because we're in a time now where when you say the wrong thing to anger particularly the ruling party, there are thousands of people around the world who will put you in their sights. And I'm hopeful, certainly on behalf of Mr. Shapley and Mr. Ziegler, that they won't experience that to the worst degree. But all of us today listening to this know that there are crazy people out there who do crazy things.
Mark Weaver joining us. Mark, he was a Department of Justice employee. Mark, Democrats have come out all day and discredited these two agents all along across the aisle on the Democratic side. And today, many of them said that this is not a big deal. Is this a big deal today? Was this a big deal?
Well, I wouldn't call this particular instance today the single smoking gun, because over the last several months, we've had an entire armory of smoking guns about the Joe Biden administration. We know that he has been covering for his son as far back as going to Ukraine and threatening to remove tax dollars from Ukraine unless Ukraine fired the prosecutor looking at the corrupt deal that Hunter Biden was involved in. That goes back from when Joe Biden was vice president. That's many years ago. And so this is today just the latest example of Hunter Biden getting special treatment by his father. And listen, nobody blames Joe Biden for loving his son. We all should love our children. But what you can't do is use your power as president to block federal law enforcement from looking into your son.
Bingo. Mark Weaver joining us. Mark, stick around. I want to come back. I got to hit a quick break on the other side of this. I want to ask you about how can we believe these guys are credible and what's the next? Now what's next? What happens next? I'm Westside Jeff in for Chris Krok on News Talk 820 WBAP.